Are you struggling to understand how do you size a Microsoft Fabric capacity? Well, I'm going to share with you an analogy that might be useful for how you think about leveraging Fabric or sizing Fabric for your environment. Hi, my name is Peter and I help organizations with Microsoft's data analytics and AI platforms. And I do a lot of work with customers to understand what size Fabric capacity do I need. It's a great new tool. A lot of customers are interested. They're on Power BI, maybe on other platforms, and want to know, right, I want to go to Fabric, but what's it going to cost? How do I do that? And the good news is there's lots of entry points in terms of size and costs that you can get started with Fabric. But how do you know what size you need? So I want to just take you back, if you've ever thought about or worked with infrastructure and thought about when we went to virtualization many years ago. We'd have our virtual machine host of a certain size. It had so much, I guess, CPU and memory. And what I didn't draw on here is sometimes, not always, we'd have maybe a SAN that would be our storage. Sometimes it's directly attached. Sometimes it was, other means. I'm not an infrastructure expert, but we would have multiple different VMs, and we'd have lots of our spinning disks or solid state disks attached there. And the amount of VMs in our storage was bound by the size of your virtual machine host and the size of your SAN. All right, hopefully you follow me so far. So when we think about what Fabric capacities allow us to do, it's a little bit similar, a little bit different. So let's see how this goes and see if this makes sense. So when you buy a Fabric capacity, it's like buying a virtual machine host. It's a set amount of CPU, and there's a memory associated. Essentially, CPU is the key thing. So talk about, consumption and metrics of compute, right? Capacity units. It's really how much execution time you buy when you buy into a Fabric capacity. So this might be, let's just call this size for no particular reason, F64. It's quite a common one. It's an equivalent of a Power BI premium. And what you can fit in there will be, it depends, right? Just like our virtual machines over here, it depends on the size that of the workloads. The size can be of our workspaces is dependent on, well, what do we want to do? So we might have, let's call it a big set of finance reports, right? Let's call it WS workspace. Big set of finance reports could be quite a big workspace. We might have an operations workspace, and that might be lots of things going on there. Sales might be a little bit smaller. And you can start to see how, right, as these workspaces are used in the compute, which is in ingestion, visualization, processing of data, real-time analytics, data science workloads, all these sorts of components that go into Fabric get consumed by what is going on, right? You can still have lots of reports, but not require much compute. So it depends on what activities are going on to the processes. But there's so much that will be able to fit inside that capacity, essentially. And the other thing we need to draw is storage. Now, storage is a little bit different because with storage, it's a one lake. It's sort of an endless pay per gigabyte. It's the endless SAN, if you like. So it's quite scalable, where our data at the end of the day, and it can be in different formats. It's not going to draw databases or Parquet files or what have you. It's really the storage, and that is then quite extensible going forward. Don't need to think about the size of that. You'll just use it. Obviously, monitor it, but it doesn't have as hard and fast sort of constraints as a capacity will. Now, as you fill up your workspace, I'm just going to draw a few, your capacity. Let's just say we're a couple of big ones. And even with a bit of overhead, so let's just call this a little bit of overhead, because sometimes these things will go up and down. You might get to the point where we're constrained. What do we do? So your two options, much like infrastructure, what would we do? Well, we could make the host bigger. So physically update the CPUs or memory as such to give it more capacity. So we could do this, make it bigger and fit in more workloads. Or what we typically do is a very skinny host, but add a new host to allow us to put in more VMs, right? This is how we grew our data centers before cloud, pre-cloud. And much the same, we can do this in the Fabric world. We can upgrade our capacity. So this is scale up. So we can add more workspaces, or we can create a new capacity. And let's just call this, say it's, I don't know, a fraction of that, call it an F16, and maybe we upgrade this to an F128, it's not to scale. And let's just make this boundary a bit, well, leave that there and add our workspaces. But now we've got workspaces, or the workloads inside our Fabric capacity that can be assigned to one of the capacities, or in a capacity we can continue to grow out. So hopefully it gives you a sense of the options for scaling. And think about our infrastructure world, where we would upgrade the host or add hosts or add disk and what have you. We just consume the disk down here in our one lake, which I should label. And likewise, with our Fabric capacities, we can increase them too. And the good news is we could start small. If all we needed was initial workspace, it was quite a small workload, start with a smaller one, like say an F16, all right? And then build that out based on the features you need and capabilities you need. You don't have to go to a big monolithic capacity right away. And that's the great difference is, instead of having to physically go and put a capex out and get extra hosts like we would here, it's just a cloud switch, right? Upgrade the capacity size or add new capacity size, reassign the workspaces to where you want to be. So smooth, so easy, that you can start small, grow bigger, and then start adopting it as your needs dictate. So while it might be a kludgy analogy, the difference is, physically you're bound. Here, it's just purchasing more compute to be able to do that. So hopefully that was helpful to understand how do capacities work inside of Fabric. And if you've lived this, and there's probably a generation of people in IT who less and less are going to be exposed to this, but for those that understand that, hopefully that makes sense around what you can do with Fabric and your options available. And just like we would in an infrastructure world, you can then start carving these out for, say, a non-production environment versus production environment. Or you might go, let's give finance a dedicated compute, and then you could I can't remember the exact word, but build them effectively for that. Attribute the cost as well. So there's reasons why you might want to do that outside of just managing size and capacity. Hope that's helpful, and look forward to further helping you with understanding how to get started with Fabric.